Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This next artist is an emerging alt folk act in Boston, dissecting his own personal experiences and embracing life's moments with everything he writes. He's soon to be a true force to be reckoned with. Welcome, Grable.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. I always like to start with where your music journey kind of all started.
Yeah. So started singing when I was a kid and when I did musicals. And then I joined the choir in middle school and I did that all through high school. I'm from Colorado. And when I was in my senior year, junior or senior year, I started to have a passion for songwriting and production. But it just kind of started with me singing in choir and playing guitar on the side a little bit. And that was really it. Yeah.
So when it got into the like creating your own stuff and the writing and production side of things, what within that kind of made you, want to pursue it more legitimately and like actually kind of like take these things that you're writing and make them like a real deal and like, do the upload to Spotify thing and all that fun stuff.
It's very interesting because I've I've I loved I've loved music my whole life, but I think I couldn't pinpoint exactly what I wanted to do in music. And so I think when I finally got GarageBand and I just started messing around with GarageBand, I remember just like really, really enjoying it more than I'd enjoyed anything else. I did musicals, choir, orchestra, guitar lessons, you name it, right? When I was like getting to just make up my own songs in GarageBand and like have a recording of that to show people, like I just really, really loved that. So then, I ended up getting Logic, getting like a mic, and then starting to do that more often. And then obviously that got into more songwriting type of stuff. And it just kind of went from there. And that's just what I love to do now more than anything else is just to write and produce music.
So you find like the most joy in the actual like production aspect of kind of taking a song from like this little voice memo idea in your phone to something that sounds like put together and actually like intended to be good.
Yeah, I think that's what I enjoy the most about music. Obviously, I love to perform. I love all of these things, but if you're asking me like what my favorite thing is, it has to be the songwriting and the production side of things. Starting with a song seed and taking it and putting it into a DAW and throwing down all these layers and instrumentals and creating something like larger than when you first originally came up with it. I just love it so much. So that's what I'm here uh doing now.
Yeah, it's always cool to see, even if it's not like directly in your hands, to see something go from like its little like fetus form to become like this like full blown thing. And just kind of it's like how did this little idea become like this whole thing that's got like 40 tracks on it and all this other stuff. It's like where did like I don't know how we got from point A to point B, but like I'm really like point B's kind of rocking. Like this just
Yeah,
happened somehow.
absolutely. I really love, going back to voice memos from 3, 4 years ago and hearing those song seeds that I started, and then listening to my productions of those songs now and the songwriting that I did on them and how they sound. And it's just really interesting. Like it's like a puzzle when you're putting together a song and figuring it out and deciding what direction you want to go with it. And that process I just enjoy so much. I'm addicted to it.
Yeah, I mean it's always really interesting to see how it transforms because sometimes you have it where it's like, okay, this is basically just like a version of the voice memo that you just added layers to. It just is kind of basically just tweaking what's already there. And sometimes it's like this little idea transformed into something completely different, and it's like so out of left field, and it's like I don't even know how you're connecting these two things together other than the fact that they like are the same words and like clearly like are have the same title. It's like they just it's like the apple did not seem to fall very close to this tree. Like it's like a 180.
Totally. I completely agree with that. I was talking about this on another radio show I just went on. It's like it can start in so many different ways. It can start with like, at least for me, it can start from writing from a title or a concept or hearing a melody in your head and saying, "Oh, well, that's kind of cool. Like, let's try that. Let's work on that." Or going into the DAW with nothing and like creating an instrumental that you like and then writing over top of that. Like, there's just a million ways to do it. And yeah, you're right. Sometimes the song can evolve from like a little, singer-songwriter guitar demo to like something way more insane than you thought it could be. And it's just like going on that creative process that is just so fulfilling to me.
Yeah. Are you able to like find differences in the stuff that you write and create that like this started like these songs that started as like singer-songwriter demo sorts of things versus like these ones that were like started in Logic and then you like wrote lyrics to, like are you able to kind of decipher like do you see like the end result look different based on how the song started?
I would say so because I think sometimes when I create an instrumental in a DAW first and I flush that out more, those songs tend to just be a little bit more produced. You know what I mean? Like more ear candy drums, more layers, right? And then on the other hand, if I sit down and I write a song on the guitar, let's say I write the whole song on the guitar. I haven't I haven't touched the DAW at all. When I bring that song into a DAW, it's a lot more of a careful process of saying like, what can I do with this to amplify it? So I guess like a lot of the time when I sit down to write on guitar and I write the whole song on guitar, usually those songs end up being a little bit more stripped back, a little bit more raw. Whereas if I'm in the DAW first, I kind of go crazy there and then I write the song over that. You know what I mean? So I would say obviously they're all my songs and they all kind of, are doing similar things, but maybe in the DAW things are a little bit more produced if that's where I start. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I that makes a lot of sense to me as someone who writes instrumental
Yeah.
like I everything is out of DAW until it absolutely like has to be in the DAW.
Mhm.
And so it's like I get the like that's like I how I hear it when I write it is how it has to stay. So everything always stays a little bit more stripped back. So I that you're justifying my insanity in terms of like why can't I like do anything production wise with these songs? It's for that exact reason. It's like you just it's in its finished product and then you just are adding little tasteful things to make it a little more polished.
Yeah, I absolutely get it because it's like you're trying to amplify the song and make it, marketable and, able to play on a streaming service, but you want to preserve the magic of it. Which so I totally understand. I'm
Yeah.
glad we're on the same page about that. That's yeah.
That validated a lot of the I'm like,
Yeah.
why can't I do anything with this? I'm like I like that kind of music. I just could never do it myself because I'm like everything starts here and so it's got to sound like it started here and I can't touch it any other way. So that thank you for that.
There's the puzzle, right? There's the
Yeah.
sitting and really thinking about it and figuring out and trying like new different things and going different directions. It's like such a fun process.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. What do you find most often inspires a lot of your writing?
Well, obviously I listen to music all the time. So, my favorite band is Coldplay. And so I listen to a lot of Coldplay. I also love One Republic, Imagine Dragons.
You're speaking my language here.
Like a lot of people, I've gotten into Noah Khan recently as well, that more folky type style of stuff, which is similar to what I do as well. So sometimes I get inspired just by hearing another song and just like, whether it's the energy of the song or the message. But then a lot of the time I'm just leaning on things in my life. So a lot of my songs recently have been, about family and personal growth and, those types of things because that's what I'm going through. I'm here in college in Boston. I'm not around my family as much, so I'm thinking about them more often. And I'm trying to be an artist and doing all these things, and with that has come a lot of lessons and in life and just personal growth. So like a lot of the time, like I'll want to express those feelings in a song. Um, but yeah, sometimes the song idea will just come out of nowhere, and I don't even know what it's trying to express right away, but I just kind of run with it, and then eventually it kind of sorts itself out. Yeah,
Yeah. No, it's sometimes it's literally not until the whole thing is like polished up and done and like out into the world that you're like, wait, this is actually what that was supposed to mean. Like this is
yeah,
actually what apparently I've been saying with this song the whole time.
yeah,
Like apparently that's just what it was.
yeah. No, it's very interesting how that can happen sometimes, where you just kind of come up with this like concept and then you just roll with it and you make it and you flush it out and then you like look back on it and you're like, oh, okay, I think I see where that fits. Yeah.
It's like learning pieces of yourself like through the stuff that you write. It's really
True.
interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
Like that
That's
had to come from somewhere. So it's just like what like learn something new every day, I guess. Sometimes it's in your own writing.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, a lot of songwriters obviously talk about like it just came from above. It just hit me. I didn't have to, you know. And I guess I've felt that kind of feeling sometimes, but I think a lot of the time it really is just being inspired by other artists that are already around. Like nothing fires me up more than like listening to like some of my favorite songs or watching a clip of a live performance from someone like Coldplay and just seeing the energy and the way that the music is making people feel. It just makes me so inspired and makes me want to write, and produce music that does the same thing.
So when you take inspiration from other artists, like the ones you listed, do you think, or I guess, does it show through more in like from like a sonic kind of way, or more so from like a what you're writing about kind of way?
I mean, I think for me, I've kind of made an effort to try to define that when I'm thinking about like an inspiration for a song. So like, you know, for example, I've really admired Noah Kahan's style of writing where it's very storytelling, right? It's specific, yet it's still relatable, and it paints a very good picture. So like I'll listen to a song where that sort of thing is happening and I'll be inspired about that and then I'll apply that to my writing. In other instances, when I'm trying to go for a feeling, like in a production sonically, that's when I'll think about like what am I trying to go for here as like a sonic reference for this song, like, and then that's when I would use more of a production type of reference. So it really depends. I think honestly both of those things I tend to think about. But it's really just kind of defining it in the process of like this helps me with ideas for production and this is inspiring me on the songwriting side. And I think I like to have both of those things.
Do you find that ever from like just one individual, like for a obviously for like a specific song or something you're trying to write? Do you find that from the same artist? Because like I know you've referenced the like Coldplay, One Republic in more terms of like sound, whereas like with the Noah Khan thing, it was like leaning more into the songwriting style things. Do you find that ever from both, or
Yeah,
both from one person? I guess.
absolutely. And those are some of my favorite songs to ever exist, right? Like, when I hear a song that is doing something that I love lyrically and songwriting wise, but also just has incredible production and is just huge. Like those are, those are my favorite songs. So absolutely. I love just honestly those songs, those types of songs that I are just my very favorite, just inspire me in general. When I'm not feeling creative at all, I listen to something like that. It's like, yeah, I'm ready to go now. Let's do something.
It's like a default fix. It's like if you just need if it's just a blank slate, you have that as your like go to like it's like yeah, it's just your guarantee kind of we're filling that cup for sure at that point. We're throwing
Absolutely.
them in the mix. We're filling the cup.
Right. It fills the creative lull that you're feeling, right? Because I'm sure you can relate to that feeling as well, right? Maybe trying to write something and not knowing what you're going to write, or wanting so badly to create something, but it just isn't happening and nothing's working. Like that's definitely when I'll like try to hit the reset button by just kind of looking at some of the artists that I admire and listening to their stuff and just getting inspired again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the hard part is just the inconsistency of it. Sometimes it's like when you want to do the thing, it doesn't let you do the thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes when you don't necessarily have the time or energy to do the thing, it's like now we have ideas. Let's do this now. Like let's
Very true. I think, yeah, that's a great point because honestly, sometimes like when we are moving around and doing other things in our day, that's when we come up with the coolest stuff. I remember I was actually just sitting in a class the other day here at Berkeley, and it just hit me. Like I just had this crazy idea for a song, and it was like I had to like pull out a notebook and just like write something to remember. I couldn't even record a voice memo. I was in class, like you're right. Sometimes it hits you at times where you don't expect. And then when you actually are just sitting down, really like trying to write, like sometimes that's not actually when the best ideas are going to come.
no, and that's the unfortunate part because sometimes I feel like when I get the idea down, that's when I want to execute on it. And when you're in that situation where you just can't, it's like some ideas are like, they're revisitable. Like you can come back and like, know exactly kind of what we're getting at here. But other times it's like, no, I think that one was living in that moment and I don't think it's coming
Yeah.
back. I wrote a note down in my phone at the bar over the weekend. So it's,
Yeah.
you never know when it's coming, but you got to have
Yeah.
something to hold on to it for a moment.
Yes, absolutely. It's like, yeah, it's like trying to catch lightning in a bottle because it's like when you do get really, really inspired, it's almost like that's just a wave and that's going to go away. And so you have to get it down in that moment. You have to, you know, go to the bathroom of the bar and hum into your phone like you're crazy, right? Like that's what it ends up becoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. No.
If you had to create a new genre around your style of music, what would it be called?
Whoa. Okay. So, I mean, just to kind of describe, I think what a lot of my music is leaning towards lately is it's very folk based. Like there's a lot of acoustic guitar, mandolin, banjo, things like that in there, but it's also really, really, really layered in BGVs because obviously I come from a choir background. During my first few years here at Berkeley, I was in an a cappella group, right? So like, I mean, I don't know. Let's let's just call it aka folk. How about that, right? So it's very, folk based on an instrumental level, but then on a vocal level, there's a lot happening. There's ad libs, there's oohs, ahs, BGVs, all the different things that you can say, you know, that would come to mind for vocal production. Like the vocal folder is huge, and then the instrumental stuff is folk. You know what I mean? So maybe we'll call it that. I mean, obviously, I will just label it as alternative folk, but maybe Aka folk. We'll call it that.
I don't hate that. I think yeah, I mean if that's the two kind of main elements we're working with right now, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always interesting to like hear where people start and then like look at the stuff like whether they started in theater or like you started in choir or like if you start like on a instrumental level and just like see how that feeds into whether you like realize it or not, like how it feeds into the kind of stuff that you like write and create. Like with the people that I've talked to that are like come from like a musical theater background, I'm like I can hear it. Like if I
Yeah.
now that I know that like I can hear it in there. Like there's definitely that little bit of influence in there. And so
Yes.
it makes sense to like with the choir background, you're used to all the vocals. It's like that's what you know, that's what you're used to working with. That's now in the music. And you can't go wrong with layers and layers and layers of vocals. Like there's just something nice about it.
That's so true. And really like when I first pulled out GarageBand as a kid, um, that was like the first thing I was like doing. I was like, whoa, so I can like sing one vocal and then I can put another vocal on top of it. And wow, no, I can make my own harmonies. Like, and that was like mind blowing. And so I just got so carried away with that. So that's like a huge part of my production and writing is harmonies and BGVs and you know like that's what I always lean towards when I'm trying to make a song feel bigger than life, right? More than life. That's the goal. Is like a lot of BGVs, a lot of layers.
I mean, if there's space that needs to be filled, like the default is just to do more vocal stuff, and it
Yeah,
fills the space without being too much. It just kind of adds a little bit extra like depth to it, and there we are.
totally. Yep, I'm in agreement.
Um, is there a song that you've written that you feel like best embodies who you are as an artist in terms of like a one song sample? If you like this, you like the rest. If you like this, you should be a fan. Kind of your like one shot to pitch somebody on more of your catalog.
Man, a song I've written.
Yes.
Hmm, man, like there's so many songs, so it's very difficult to like think about which like one song I would pitch. But to be honest with you, I'm actually very excited about the song that I'm about to release that I've been working on. It's called "Don't Walk Away," and it's very, I think, well. What am I trying to say? It has really summative instrumentation for what my genre is, right? So like it has all of those folk elements, and I also really like the writing on that song. I feel very confident about the message and the writing on the song itself. It's a song about long distance. So um, I've been 1,700 miles away in a long distance relationship with my girlfriend for over 3 years now. She lives in Colorado. And so that song um, is about the airport goodbye and just how terrible those are, and like that being like one of the worst parts of a long distance relationship. And that song is just kind of telling a story about that. So I feel really good about this song. It feels like every song I make now is better than the next. So I definitely feel that way about this song that I'm about to release. So yeah.
Well, as long as you're feeling like everyone's better than like every next one is better than the last one, like that means you're doing something right. Like something's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean I think it's only natural because I'm learning so much here at Berkeley, and there's so many students around and just collaborators that it just feels like every day I'm picking up a million new, tricks, whether it's production or songwriting, and yeah, so I think it's definitely reflective in the stuff that I'm making, and I'm very excited to just keep making stuff. And I'm sure that there will be songs where oh, I didn't hit it on that one. Like maybe let's just push that to the side. Let's start something else, right? But I feel like lately I'm seeing good positive returns in my work from when I first started here at Berkeley and when I got into songwriting and production. So that's like really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the process of growth, not every step is a big one forward.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're lateral, sometimes they're a little inch back or so. Not every song's gonna hit. Not like name one person's catalog who has no skips. You
Exactly.
can't. You can't. That's just not how it works.
Yeah.
Like you just so that's bound to happen. And
Right.
then that just means you're one step closer to the next like step up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all about how you look at it.
And that's like one of the things um like yeah, so to answer your question, that's the song. But like I think in general, one thing I've learned is you got to just keep moving. I think I've sat on songs for way too long, overthinking every aspect of the song, listening to it thousands of times in the DAW, doing all these different things, and you lose the magic. Um, So with this recent track, like I really tried to just say, we're doing this. We're going to make it happen. It's getting done. And here it is. You can listen to it, right? Like that's kind of what I tried to do. And that's what I'm going to look to do in the future is to not sit on a track too long because I think, especially if you start working on a track, you know, a year ago, you're going to be more improved now and you're going to be working on something that you started when you maybe weren't like as far along, right? So like why like leave things on the table for that long? Get stuff out, move to the next thing is one of the things I've learned.
Yeah, because and especially like with that kind of scenario when you're taking something that you've been sitting on for so long and revisiting it, it's like you're not the same person that you were when you first wrote it. And usually there's going to be some kind of disconnect. Like that thing had its like period of like ready to be up and going and like out into the world. And now you're touching it like a year later when it's like 50% there and you're trying to put this extra 50% on it now. And it's just like, there's something along the lines here that just did not like those ends didn't meet. Those things didn't connect. They're not working as well together as they could have if they were put together in the first place.
Yeah.
But that's the game that we play. So,
Yeah.
sometimes you can get the occasion where it turns out better. But I'm of the just like done is better than perfect. Like that's a saying for a reason. It's just like finish it.
Yeah.
People are going to look back at it and look at what you're at now and think, oh, like things are better now as they should be.
Right.
But to
Right.
have a any sort of history, you have to kind of start somewhere and kind of put something out into the world just to kind of see what happens.
It's so good to hear you say that because that is absolutely like what I'm, learning right now is like, am I going to be 100% happy with every song I put out and there's
No,
nothing I could go back and change? No,
no.
never, but like for the first time, I feel like I've spent an adequate amount of time on a song and now I'm going to release it and we're going to move on. And it feels like I haven't sat on it for too long. It feels like I haven't overthought the process too much. Too much, keyword. Still did a little bit, but not too much. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like, you know, the magic will come in the next song you make, and you'll run with that, and then it'll just keep happening like that. You can't stick with things for too long.
Yeah. And like that's the thing that I've had the most issue with in music is that it is subjective. Like when I was taking audio engineering classes and all this stuff, I was like, I just want someone to tell me what I'm supposed to do and not leave any like I just want to like the creative part for me is like on the back like on the front end. Like let me write the song. Let me put together the instrumentation. Let me do that. But when it comes to like the fine tuning and things like that, like just tell me exactly what I'm supposed to do
Yeah,
so I can do that and then it can be done. But there is like it's like every stage of the game, there's 100 different things you could do to come up
yeah,
with 100 different results, and you just have to pick one. And that's all
right.
there is to it. Like maybe there is technically a wrong choice. Like there are some things that maybe you shouldn't do with
Sure.
parts of a track.
Yeah.
There are general rules of thumb in a lot of cases, but a lot of it is just make it sound the way you want it to sound and you'll be fine. Like maybe this one thing could have sounded better, sure, but let it be what it's going to be
I
because
love it.
there's no such thing as a perfectly finished song. It just doesn't exist
So
and it
true.
never will. So,
Yeah. Okay.
move on.
Have two. First thing I would say is you're so right because it's like sometimes those imperfections in a song make it what it is, right? Like that's a good thing.
Yes.
And like yeah, you just can't be perfect with everything. And there are a million different directions you can go with certain things, because I think sometimes we're like, this is the only way it can be. And if it's not like this, like, like, darn it. Like, no, but it can be a bunch of different things. And it's up to you. It's your choice. It's a creative decision
Mm-hmm.
that you make that makes your stamp as an artist what it is. So, yeah, you're validating a lot of things I've been thinking, Andrea. So I really appreciate that.
Well, the feeling's mutual. We're on the same page. Yeah, it's as painful as it can be that it is as subjective as it is sometimes. That's also the beauty of it. Like you said, like the unpolished stuff is sometimes just the better thing to just kind of let be what it's going to be.
Yeah,
It's like that's almost kind of like in right now, like it doesn't have to be this perfectly performative thing. It doesn't have to be executed to the nines like in this exact way, or it's not going to be a thing. Like even if you get like 98% of the way to where you wanted to be, or even just 90% of the way you wanted it to be, you will be fine. You will be more than fine. Like that is task accomplished. Like done is better than perfect. Perfect doesn't exist.
I totally agree.
As much as that sucks sometimes. I
No,
just want to know when I've hit the mark and
yeah,
then be done, but there is no mark. So we just keep trucking along.
perfection is unachievable and imperfection is beauty in the songs you make. That's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you had to pick two or three artists that you think your music is like a combination of, who would it be?
Mm. Okay. So I think obviously as of recently, especially like, this this direction I'm going with folk stuff, I think Noah Khan would be one. I've been very inspired by his stuff, you know. And then I think in terms of the the writing, I would like to say Coldplay. You know what I mean? I think I've been so inspired by them that there there is just a sort of stamp from them in my stuff. Um, and then really like, on the like the harmony type side of things, like you could even go as far to say like a Jacob Collier or Lizzie McAlpine where there's a lot of harmonies layered in the songs and it's very like that's creating this atmosphere in the music. So yeah, let's go with Noah Khan, Coldplay, and maybe Lizzie McAlpine. Let's go with that. Yeah,
She's the more folk side of those two final
right,
options.
right.
So
Yeah,
sticking on brand, that makes the most
yeah,
sense.
yeah. And I think like yeah, because those are the two main things, and then Coldplay is really just like for me, just like the most inspiring, band that I know of. And so like they just inspire me in general, whether it's the message of the song or the energy I'm trying to create. And I think like the more like writing and sonic stamps like that you could compare my stuff to would be the Noah Khan or Lizzie McAlpine type of vibe. But you have to listen for yourself and see what you think.
I mean, it is a lot of people will pull like inspirations from that, and like the Coldplay thing, it to some degree you are a product of your inspirations,
Yeah,
point blank period. Like that's just how it goes. But like the names that you pulled were like for certain aspects of your music, which means there's a sense of self-awareness in terms of like what you're doing with what you're doing. Like you're able to identify what it is instead of just like throwing something at a wall until something sticks.
yeah,
But no, that's the Coldplay also gives you a lot of room to kind of work with because they've done
right.
so much
I
stuff.
know.
Like they've done so many different things. Like you look from like Yellow to A
Yeah,
Sky Full of Stars to like some of their more recent stuff. Like quite the spectrum. So
and
you
and,
have a
and
lot
I
of room
really
to work with.
yeah, I really admire that about Coldplay because it's like it's an energy that they bring. It's not even like a genre, it's an energy. And like I would love, 10 years down the road to be known for my energy, my voice, right? That would be the goal, right? Oh, it's Chris Martin's voice. It's Grable Howie's voice, right? Obviously, maybe 5 years down the road, I'll make an album that's more poppy or an album that's more country. Obviously, folk is the type of stuff that I'm doing now, but that's subject to change. But I hope the energy that I bring and like the overall feeling that I bring never changes. And I think like to your point, like yeah, the voice and just like the overall feeling is sometimes what sticks through the whole way.
Yeah, I think like with the day and age that we're in with music, where anybody can make music out of their basement if they so pleased, which is
Yep.
both a blessing and a curse because of tools are at your disposal, but also means tools are at everyone's disposal. But like when you first mentioned Coldplay, I was thinking about it and I was like, it's not about from, you know, where you start to wherever you end being cohesive, like top to bottom. Like I shouldn't like for someone who's been around as long as your Coldplays or your One Republics and stuff like that, there should be some discrepancy if I listen to your catalog like top to bottom. Like there should be some changes. If you're doing the same thing over and over again, people are going to get tired of it. But it's about like those periods. Like it's like, you know, the Taylor Swift era thing. It's like it's been pretty broad. Like she's gone country to like very pop to like kind of pop to wherever you want to put like folky things now. Um, but it's about those moments across the timeline kind of being like what they are. Like just
Yeah,
those moments being concrete and concise and all of the same like, you know, sound and all that. So it's like the packages along the way make sense independently, but also just like the bigger puzzle is like that's where you have a little freedom. Like you can grow as a person and do something different.
yeah,
You can develop a new sound and try something new and different. That's fine. But like make your moments along the way like distinct and like know who you are at that moment and do that thing.
I love
And
that.
then move on to whatever comes next.
That's yeah, that's brilliant. I love it. Like, yeah, I totally agree. You're saying, okay, maybe we're gonna do this now, but that doesn't mean that I have to do that forever. Later I
No.
can decide, oh, let's actually, you know, go this direction, this genre, this new thing. I love that. I hope in, years and years down the road, like that will be what my catalog looks like. My catalog is still so small, right? It's like it's one song and now it's about to be two, like, and I hope down the road it's like you can see this journey with multiple eras and just like, painting a picture of what my life has been like, and what I've been doing.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like the more like looking at it from such a small like perspective, like, you know, when you're independent and just doing your own thing, especially in like the first like couple years, it's like you don't have that many songs to your name. So anything that's like different from like the one thing that you've done so far or the couple things you've done so far is going to look so much different. But if you have like 50 songs to your name, something going a little off book isn't going to feel as out of pocket as it does when you have 5 songs to your name.
True.
So it's just kind of like this, you know, we're figuring out what pieces are going in the puzzle kind of as we're going along, and then that puzzle's actually going to start to make a picture. Like so
Yeah.
far we're just still trying to find the pieces, and then the puzzle gets built, you know, when we have another like 30 songs under our belt.
Yeah. No, that's really great. I totally agree. So like I'm excited to develop the sound that I'm on right now, and then hopefully down the road there's going to be something newer and more, inspiring to me in that moment to kind of move over to.
Yeah. It's the blessing and the curse of the blank canvas.
Yeah, seriously. That's so true.
If you're someone that is constantly looking for new music and trying to find artists before they blow up, then I'd like to introduce you to a project you're going to love. Indie for Your Inbox is an email newsletter that brings you a new song from an independent artist every single day. Uniting music lovers with the future face of the industry, we want to provide indie artists a new way to bring their music to their future fans. Click the link to subscribe now and find your future favorite artist. What is an outside passion of yours that you feel impacts who you are as an artist?
Ooh, man. I think honestly, just fitness in general is a really big thing for me. Taking care of my body, um, you know, going to the gym, going on runs. I love football. I love basketball. Like I've just am really into things on the sports side, whether I'm, watching, a basketball game or a football game, right? Or I'm actually playing those sports or if I'm in the gym. Like I think those things for me are morale boosters and they help me, you know, feel refreshed and like channel creative energy. It's very funny. Like I've had some of my best songwriting ideas in the gym, like when I'm, or afterwards. Like I think just for me, that is a great way to get myself out of a lull, and to feel inspired again. So like day to day, just working out, going on runs, staying active is huge. Like it's just so important for me.
Yeah, I mean it's like you said, it's good for just overall morale. Like it just is. It's a vibe booster. It's a good little like energy spike and a little, just kind of keeping the days moving along and keeping things functioning in the way that they should. It's it's just yeah, eh, I will say runs not a terrible place to get ideas. Not a terrible place
Right.
to just kind of exist. And if ideas come, they're usually pretty solid.
Totally. I'm so with you. Like, yeah, and that's just something that, I look forward to continuing to do alongside my my work as an artist and a producer and writer and everything. Like, you know, I'm running a half marathon this summer. Like that, those types of things. Like I just love, it's like a side quest, but it's happening at the same time as my regular quest. So yeah, it's fun. I think it's important for me creatively to be able to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I need more side quests in my life. I saw somebody talking about a side quest on TikTok or Instagram or something the other day, and I was like, I feel like I need to do more of that. Like I've
Yeah,
just been on the one main path. I need to do these little other moment things and just say why not, you know?
I think I need more of those too, to be honest. A lot of people close to me have been like, "You're doing music all the time. Maybe it's time to, you know, besides just go to the gym and work on music, do something else." So, maybe I need more than just one side quest. But yeah, those things just help, right? Make you feel more, you know, well-rounded and more like you're, you know, a human who's living like a life and not just sitting in your room for hours and hours and hours and hours doing the same thing.
Yeah. No, I had it's been a minute, but I had somebody on here. I wish I could remember who it was that was talking about how it's like if you don't like go and live like life and do things, it's like you're gonna run out of things to write about at some
Oh,
point. You're
it's
just gonna be like writing just mindless nonsense if you don't actually like experience anything, especially if you're someone that writes a lot from personal experience. If you lack the experience, there's not going to be any subject matter and you're just going to run out.
that is so true. I remember my mom saying that to me because, I really, value hard work and being on top of your game and not wasting time. But I think sometimes I mistake things that are living as wasting time. Like,
Mm.
going to hang out with my friends. That's not wasting time. That's living your life, you know, like you're so right about that. If I just sit in my room all day and work on, producing and, homework and all these things, my songs are going to be really boring. What are they going to be about? Right? Like it's really in those big moments where I really have something to write about, like in those moments of my life that are very memorable. So you have to go out and make those happen. So that's definitely something I've been learning about is like, no, don't mistake those things that are just living your life as being lazy. That's been a big learning curve for me because I'm trying to be as efficient as possible. An independent artist, I'm trying to do so many things at the same time, and the bar is so high and the chances are so low for all these people who are trying to do this thing. So I'm, trying to work as hard as possible, but at the same time, I can't lose those life experiences that are actually going to fuel me and inspire me, in a creative sense.
Yeah. The one thing that I've kind of taken since graduating college was like, you just like, when am I going to get the opportunity to do this again? Let me just say yes, do the thing, and just, go out and experience whatever it is. Maybe it's not my like favorite thing to do or an ideal way for me to personally spend my time, but it's like have the experience. There's no harm, no foul really. Like unless like I'm putting myself in danger doing something or like completely wasting like a week of time or something like that. Like just say yes, do the thing. Go and like why not? No harm, no foul. Like just you have to experience it. And if it's a poor experience, that can also be a song.
Yeah.
Like it just you can get there can be a silver lining regardless of what the situation holds.
Yeah.
So just got to do the things.
So right. I think everyone, my friends and family who listen to this podcast are going to laugh because I think I need to have this conversation more often because I think I forget about that. Like
Yeah.
I got to work as hard as possible. Like I can't do that. I can't do this. That's not, you know, furthering my goals. That's not working hard enough. Um, and so yeah, I think it's good to have those reminders that it's okay to live. And I personally need those reminders a lot more. You know.
Everything is not the life or death matter that it sometimes can feel like it is.
Yeah.
Nothing is as serious as we chalk it up to be in our heads. Like nothing is going to be the end of the world. Wasting an afternoon isn't going to ruin your career. It's like those little things. It's like you just have to take the moments for what they are. And not every moment's going to be an opportunity to just hone your craft because part of that is just experiencing things because half of it is like doing the actual work, but the other half of it is having that inspiration, having that stuff to pull from. And you can only listen to Coldplay for so long before you run out of inspiration from them. So I encourage you to go out and
Yeah.
do the things.
Yes. Well said. I'm totally with it, and I'll keep reminding myself that every day. Yeah.
I've started doing this thing. Well, not really started at this point. It's been a minute, but I take a question from last week's artist for this week's artist.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Last week's question was, what keeps you coming back to music in the moments of doubt? What keeps the fire going?
Yeah. Um. Hmm. I think when I think I mentioned this before, but when I'm really, really not feeling inspired at all, like when I really just want to lay down on my bed and do nothing and truly actually waste time, like that is when I'll sit down and I'll watch like an artist that I admire performing live. I think, that just feeling like watching some of those, Coldplay stadium show like recorded songs. I don't know if you've ever seen some of those, but like that'll fire me up right away. Just like remembering what all this is for, right? The hope that one day that many people will resonate with my music and will want to sing it at the top of their lungs in a massive stadium. Like at the end of the day, that's the goal. And so that definitely fuels me. I think it's also, my friends and family supporting me and reminding me why I'm in it too, and reminding me, that they're proud of me and that they're, excited for what I'm doing. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of the time it really is leaning on those inspirations that got me into it in the first place, like listening and watching, my favorite artists do their thing and just getting really inspired from that. Specifically the live performances, because that's just something that you can't recreate. You know what I mean? And that's just something that really, you know, gets me excited and ready to create.
Yeah. I mean, I like that you framed it from the perspective of like that many people like resonate with what you're writing rather than like personally getting to experience that moment. It's like what you're creating has that sort of impact rather than like getting that experience for yourself. Like
Right.
that's to me like it's like that's what it's supposed to be about.
Uh,
It should be about in my opinion. I know not everyone kind of comes from that school of thought, but it's about what the music can do, not about and do for the people rather than do for you individually. Like we were talking about earlier, like it sometimes these ideas just kind of come out of nowhere. We are very lucky to be the people on the receiving end of those
Yeah.
random, who knows where it's coming from ideas. Like to be able to be a vessel for whatever space that random thought is coming from and then turning into like this musical creation. Um, it's like that's like you don't get like not everybody has that, and it's a really special thing to be able to do. And so to use it to then like impact others is
Yeah.
like more so what it's about than anything else. Like cool that you get to experience that, but like it's not for you, you know?
Oh,
It's for
no,
everybody else.
that's so true. I don't get nothing is more fulfilling for me than when I can see my music impacting someone else. Like, it's really cool when I listen to a demo of a song I've made and I'm really vibing with it and I'm bumping my head, but like showing it to a friend or like showing it to my mom and seeing like how she like what she thinks. Like or performing live and watching someone like, you know, truly walk out of that experience like with a positive, I impacted them in a positive way. Like that's just by far the best thing. So you're so right about that.
Yeah, that's it's it's a really interesting experience. It's a really cool feeling to have that happen because it's like it's not about you in that moment. It's about the like art itself and just like being able to watch what music does like firsthand in that way, and then to have that added layer of like this was a personal creation. Like
Yeah,
that's where the magic happens. That's what the magic is for. That's just kind
totally.
of where it all comes to life and does its thing.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
What is your question for the next artist?
Oh.
Now it's
Oh.
your turn.
Okay. Let me think here. Wow. Oh, I got to come up with something. I guess let's go with the side quest that you haven't taken up yet that you want to take up, that you've thought about taking up. What's something that what's something outside of music that you've been interested in but you haven't like actually gone out and done it, whether it's like starting to you know whatever, karate class, rock climbing, any of that. What is that thing that you have like been a little bit interested in and you're like, ooh, that looks kind of cool, but then like you haven't actually done it because you've been caught up in other things.
I like that. It makes me feel a little better when other people like when I do this and then it's like, oh, I have to come up with a question. It's like makes me feel better about the fact that I about how much I struggle to come up with the questions that I ask every week.
These are amazing
So
questions. Really great questions, seriously.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Uh, what is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists?
That's the question, right? Because there's a lot of us. There's a
There
lot of
is, there is a lot.
I'm very genuine. I'm gonna say what I'm thinking and I'm saying what I'm feeling and I have a unique story that no one else has. And that's the same for every artist. We're all coming from a different place, different experiences, and just the fact that we've lived our life and we've gone through these things is what will allow us to set ourselves apart, right? Nobody else is going to tell the exact same story that I'm telling, so I'm excited to tell people these stories, that are pertinent to my life, and that's like what I'm really excited about. Um, yeah, and then, you know, this comes from a little bit more of a competitive side of things, but like I like to think that I work very hard and I hope that I'm not, you know, I never try to compare myself to others, but I hope that the work I'm putting in is hopefully setting me apart and helping me get further along in my career and in my artistry. I really value that, and I think that anyone who wants to accomplish something huge has to really, really work hard for it. So hopefully that's doing something for me. But I think the biggest thing is just, being able to tell my own unique story, that nobody else can tell. Like that's really what it's about. And then my new genre title, Aquafolk, trademark.
We're trademarking that today.
Yep, yep,
Yeah, I mean, I think you're 100% right. As much as it's like I hate diving into like the cliche things, but it's like
yeah,
everybody like no one's you. Like no one can do what you're going to do. Don't like try and be like somebody else cuz there's already one of them. Like do what you're going to do.
yeah,
But it's true. It's like there's people that try and write a certain way or try and create to be in the same category as someone else. That's only going to get you so far. Like
yep,
even the 2010s personas of like, you get your like Lady Gaga is obviously not her real name. Like that is a crafted like character, if you will. But at the same time, it's like that's coming from like a real place. Like that's still who she is. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Like even if it's a crafted thing like that, or like it still is from that person. It still is authentic to whoever it is. Just do whatever that thing is. Like
yeah,
with especially with how like accessible music is now, and how many like from a listening standpoint, like how many different artists I could listen to in one day.
yep,
Like I haven't even listened to music for that long yet today, and I've probably crossed like 30 artists. Like
yeah,
it's crazy how easy it is to, but so then you are just consuming all of it. And so it's very easy to get lost in this space of maybe I should do something like them, or like, oh, I really like what they did with this song, or like this is like this writing style feels really cool. Like you can try and do all of those different things, and it's very easy to get pulled in all of those different directions. But the real like power you have to kind of hold is being able to like filter that out and just do what mindlessly comes to your head, or what comes out of the random chords you play on guitar, and just do like tunnel vision, like just do what you're going to do and do that to the best of your capabilities and call it a day. Because it's
yes,
very easy to be like, I want to do this, but you can't do all of those things and still be true to like who you are, what you're doing, what you're supposed to be doing, how you're supposed to be doing it. Like you can't get lost in everything else. You just have to do the main thing, and
yes,
that's it.
yeah. And I really don't mean to sound cliche, but the only thing I can do is my thing, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think I'm like the greatest singer in the world or the greatest guitar player, you know, but I think that, you know, hopefully you can hear it in my voice when you listen to my songs that I'm telling a genuine story of what's going on in my life, and hopefully other people can resonate with that. And that's like all I can really say is it's me. And that's what, and I know it is very cliche, but it's also like maybe it's cliche for a reason because it's true. And it's like you
True.
can say it a lot because it's true. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Like you're gonna stumble upon a bunch of artists and none of them are gonna be the same as the last.
Yeah.
And if you're right, you can't get lost in the sauce. Like if you're trying to write off of a formula and you're trying to like copy somebody else, it's different than being inspired, obviously. But if you're trying to like, fit yourself into this sort of thing, and then all of a sudden like it just doesn't feel true to you, then the music itself is getting harmed greatly by the fact that you're not staying authentic to who you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, you have to take it from like a personal standpoint to kickstart whatever it is. You can use those as like inspiration. Like if you want to like do something more in that area, you can consume more of it and try and shape it a little
Yeah.
bit in that direction. But the root of whatever it is has to come from you personally, or you will just be the second coming of whoever, and probably not as good as whoever, because they're the ones who are the household name. They're the ones who are like successfully doing the thing. And there that spot's taken. So like you don't need to try and do whatever they're doing. Like start from the root of it here, and then take whatever else you want to kind of polish it up, but the root of it is kind of what matters.
It has to come from your experiences and who you are and the life you've lived. In so many songwriting sessions with, other collaborators of mine, when we're having trouble on a line or whatever, you just have to go back to, you know, if, you know, what did I feel in that moment of what I'm writing about? Like just truly look inside yourself and say, what am I trying to express? And just say it for what it is, right? Like don't try to fancy it up or fit it into this certain, box, but literally just say what it is you're feeling. And that's going to be so unique in itself and something that nobody else has said. You know what I mean?
Honesty shows and authenticity shows, and
Yeah.
that's all there is to it. That's all you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Still is hard not to get lost,
Yes. Yeah.
especially, you know, I think obviously being here at Berkeley is so amazing because I'm learning so many different things about music and arranging, writing, producing, but I am all of a sudden getting this like other side of like, here's what makes a song successful. Here's what you need to do in your productions to make it feel like, which is very important to know. But I also worry about it impacting that genuine character in my music. So I think it's just something to be cognitive about. Like I think it sounds like we're both aware of that like sort of draw to, want to try to fit yourself into a box that you don't actually belong in. Um but yeah, it's pretty simple. I think just be yourself, I am what I am. This is me right here. Here we go.
Simple in thought, not always in practice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely have to remind myself.
Yeah. And like everything you kind of like you just have to take everything with a grain of salt and have this sort of filter on it of like this is new information. I can do with that whatever I want. I don't have to take that as like my own. I don't have to necessarily adopt everything within that new idea. I can take it and I can take pieces of it and I can use it to enhance the stuff that I'm already doing, but it doesn't have to create a new guideline. Like if I'm already on this path, I don't need that taking me down a left turn that I wasn't already going down. Like
Yes.
that's yeah.
Yeah, has to stay true to you.
What impact do you want to have with your music and with your artistry?
I mentioned this before, but I think a lot of my songs are about family and how important family is. A lot of the songs are about personal growth, um, and just sort of those daily life experiences that I'm living. So, when it comes to family, I hope that people can listen to my music and relate to how it makes them feel about their family, and the people that they love and, you know, how important it is to have a circle of people around you who shape who you are. And then in terms of just, the personal growth thing, like it's been, a very interesting few years for me, being here in college and being away from home and doing all these things. So, I hope that when people listen to my music, they can, maybe take away some, um, they can see in some of my experiences, maybe something they're experiencing, and maybe like it'll help them if they're feeling a similar way, like for example, like I said, like this next song that I'm writing about, releasing about long distance, you know, hopefully people can listen to that and say, I've been there. That's been me. That airport goodbye is the worst. When you're at the gate and you're about to say goodbye and like you don't know when you're going to see that person again. It's never a long enough trip. You know, I know a lot of people relate to those types of things. And so I hope that when they listen, they it helps them feel that emotion in an amplified way, and it correctly paints a picture of what they're feeling in a way that words can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I lived that situation for a year, so I'm interested to see how
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear the song.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, that's all you really like can do. And like going back to what you're talking about with the Noah Khan thing earlier is like he writes with like very specific detail
Yeah.
all the time. And sometimes it, for for me at least has taken a few listens to figure out what the heck he's trying to say.
Yeah.
But like that, like specifically his most recent project, like took the world by storm in a big way, and which is like, then kind of paving the path for those of us doing some folk-esque type of thing. But like it's a perfect example of you can tell a specific story, use details specific to your life, but still create a universal experience because the themes and it's why books and movies and shows and all forms of media and art are like universal without necessarily being universal because they're like we're all kind of living this same human experience that has a lot of the same events. Life kind of has a lot of the same things in it for everybody. They just look different with different characters, different timelines, different level of plot at times, and all these other things. But it's like these are like general experiences just painted in his perspective.
Yes.
And
There.
so it's like that's exactly like that's what music is. That's why we get the songs that are so detailed and telling specific stories that somehow millions of people are like, me too.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy.
Right. It's very interesting. You're so right about that, and I do think Noah Khan has definitely like paved the way for that. I've heard him speak on that, like talking about how, this sort of storytelling, getting into specifics of what's going on is can still be relatable to people, because like I think like when people hear the song, hopefully it's like they're not thinking like, "Oh yeah, I remember last week when I was at the Denver International Airport." It's not like that type of vibe, but it's like, "Oh yeah, wow, like that was a very descriptive and, you know, emotional experience that he just described, and I remember when I've been in that same situation and some of those things that you said like I totally relate with too." Like, you know what I mean? Like the only thing you can say to a person when they're about to leave is just, you know, don't walk away. That's the only
Mm-hmm.
thing you can say. You're so vulnerable in that moment. You just want them to stay so badly, and that's it. Um, yeah, it is very interesting, right? Because specific lyrics that are very, very storytelling and like describing like a very specific time can still, you know, impact millions of people because of the themes behind what they're talking about.
Yeah. It's the bigger picture that it's painting that is the thing that we understand. It's just the details are kind of used to put that in perspective, and then the picture is becoming more clear, and then once the picture is more clear it's like, okay, wait, like same, like me too, like I get it, been there, done that, experienced this, understand that, like we're on the same page. um but
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting because sometimes you feel like, oh, the songs that are like painted in such a universal way are the ones that are gonna like make sense to everybody. But it's like sometimes if you take too much detail out of it, it's like, what are we ultimately talking about? What
Right.
about this am I supposed to connect to and relate to and understand? Like we
Yeah.
need a little bit more information to like make me care.
Yeah, that's so true. Oh, wow, that's really well put. Like the whole, and I'm always working on that in my songs and like thinking about that is like, you know, yeah, it's can still be like the whole ambiguity thing. Ambiguity, right? Like when somebody writes something and you like it's so broad that it's just like what are you even talking about? Like, whereas when you're using all these very descriptive words, you're painting a clearer picture for somebody to see, and then they take their own, themes away from that.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it is funny, like in songs where someone says something that is like very specifically related to me, I'll sing those lines extra hard because it's like, oh, like that's literally me. But it's like not everything is like that, but I still take so much away from it because of the concepts and themes behind what they're talking about and the overall, like, feeling, something that I can still apply to whatever's going on in my life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like it's stuff like that where music has the power to develop that sense of community is because it's like, you know, that's where you can kind of connect the dots. It's like, oh, like I like this person's music because these are the stories that they tell. I relate to a lot of their stuff. Like other people that are relating to that also like are going to be in that same circle of whatever. Like it's why fandoms have such strong like community. Like Swifties are the perfect example of that in the current climate. Um
Are you a
that's
Swiftie?
I would not consider myself a Swiftie.
Got it.
I would not. I I'm not, I can't get that deep into anything. I don't think personally. I think where things are now, it's gotten crazy.
It's on a
But that's just me.
level, I would say.
It's borderline cultish or maybe already cultish. I don't know. But no, I won't touch that with a 10-foot pole. I
Oh,
enjoy some of her music, but I will not.
same. I
You
love
can't get me on that.
music's
You can't get me on that for anything. I
right.
just it's not that deep. You know, that's just kind of my standpoint. It's not that deep, but it's a good example of like she's created this like catalog of basically community building songs. Like there are people that like have just bonded over her existence essentially, which is borderline terrifying in some ways, but also like just a really cool like thing to look at and see music did this. Um
Yeah.
from a bird's eye view. I wouldn't, like I said, wouldn't want to get involved in that, but from a bird's eye view, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Die hard fans are wild. Like some of the stuff they'll do to go see
Yeah,
their their live or anything is actually crazy. Yeah.
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 So, well, I think that brings us to the final
No, so true.
question, which is ultimately why music?
Well, because I'm a complicated guy and I'm trying to, paint feelings that I don't feel like I can articulate well with words. And I also really admire and love showing my music to other people. And like I said before, like the satisfaction comes from seeing an audience reaction to my stuff and seeing how it impacts people. And I'm all about making a positive impact on people. And that's why music. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of touched on it so far with different parts of the conversation, but it's like that's that's what it's all about. Is it's like creating like from yourself, but it like is ends up being like for other people. Like if you really just wanted to create for yourself, you could just keep those in the voice memos in your phone and call it a day. But it's the putting it out into the world and kind of taking that deep dive and letting people out there see that part of who you are, that thing that you spent so much time like perfectly crafting or trying to perfectly craft since perfect isn't achievable. Like that's what makes it special. It's only so
Right.
much, it's only
Yeah.
so fun if it sits on your phone.
Great. Yeah. Like exactly. No, that's you're so right about that. I'm so excited to like show people my that's it right there. That's like what I love to do is to see people's reactions to it and to see how many people it can positively impact. So yeah. On that note, my song "Don't Walk Away" comes out on May 31st. You can check it out on my socials. Really excited. Yeah, and hopefully a lot of people can resonate with it.
Well, on that note, I think that brings us to the end of this episode of the Why Music podcast. You can check back again next week for another conversation with another independent artist. Thanks for listening.